Somebody take this one. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You want a PowerPoint, huh? All you have is me, no PowerPoint. You have to be satisfied with me. We don't have another harmonium? This is it? There's no other harmonium here? Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaurango, Nityananda. So who has my microphone? I need. Someone has my microphone? Oh, there. Radha Manohari Govinda Jayo Jayo. Come dance with us, everyone. Now, today, I want to start talking about money. Since you're working, you're making money, right? So now, what to do with it? How the money can help you and how the money can hurt you. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jayo Jayo Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Nena Bhutale Shayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Sapadantikam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Say hello to everyone. Hello. These are the future millionaires of India right here. They're all going to start big companies and build temples and schools and goshalas. So, in America, at least when I was growing up, there was not a big concern about money because there was plenty of it. And so, and anybody could make a good living if they were willing to go to school. And anybody could go to school. Anybody could get into university and get a degree. Anybody could get a master's. Anybody could get a PhD if they had intelligence and were willing to work. It wasn't a matter of money. The school would give you a scholarship or they'd give you a loan and you could pay it back later. And if you had a good degree and you were willing to work, you could get a decent job. So, money wasn't an issue and everybody had enough. Some people had more than enough and some people had way too much. But the people who had way too much were not necessarily happier than the people who didn't. They were just a little more secure, a little more comfortable. They could afford the pleasures, so-called pleasures of life, but it didn't mean they were happier. And so we want to make that distinction between what money can buy and what money can't. Money can buy security, it can buy health insurance, it can buy a room in a hospital, it can even buy you a good wife, because if you don't make much money, the women won't want to marry you. And it can buy you a nice car, comfortable shoes, nice clothes, nice home, and so forth. So definitely money can buy you comfort, it can buy you security, and it can buy you sense gratification. Right? It can buy you vacations, and you can get the best phone, and the best computer, and the best camera, and if you have enough money, just buy whatever you want, the best of everything. So it can buy you enjoyment on a physical level. But enjoyment on a physical level is much different than happiness, because there are people who have those things who are very unhappy. So we want to make that distinction. So in that sense, money can buy so many valuable things. What to speak of using that to build temples, to purchase books, to support prasadam distribution, gurukulas, goshalas, and so forth. There's no question that money has so many wonderful uses. But there is an illusion that money can buy happiness. And what I've seen growing up around money and knowing other people who've had a lot of money is that it buys you what you want. But just because you get what you want doesn't mean you're happy, doesn't mean you're going to have a good marriage, doesn't mean your kids are going to turn out well, doesn't mean you're going to have the ultimate job, doesn't mean you won't end up divorced, this doesn't mean you won't get sick, it doesn't mean all these things. So I think, especially in your culture, because you're coming from a country that has been impoverished, or the average person has not been able to make a lot of money, and now that's changing, it can look like, well, if you have money, then all your problems are solved, right? But what I've also noticed, and this research backs this up, as countries develop economically, they become more degraded. I think there's some obvious reasons and some reasons that aren't so obvious, but if you have a lot of money, you can do anything. And so you have more options for degradation. And you may know the story in Bhagavatam of Nala Kuvera Manigriva. They were sons of the Kuvera. So Kuvera is the treasure of the demigods. So they were, as we say in America, filthy rich. They just had too much money. And Nala Kuvera Manigriva got spoiled by that. They were into sex, into drugs. They were just playboys, but they were the sons of a wealthy father. And they got degraded by it. And then in that part of the Bhagavatam, it shows how the misuse of money can be very degrading. So it's not a panacea for preventing you from misery. It's not a guarantee that you won't suffer. And it's not a guarantee that you won't be happy, that you'll be happy. It's just a guarantee that you'll be comfortable. At least your body will be. It doesn't mean your mind will be comfortable, right? You can, if you have a lot of money, you can just buy the ultimate chair that massages you, and you can sleep in the chair and it goes back, and you'll be really comfortable, but it doesn't mean your mind's going to be peaceful, right? That's just physical comfort. So there's a difference, right? And so one of the things that I've been meditating on for many years is how one actually achieves happiness. Because if happiness is not economic, in other words, if people who are more economically well off are not happier, then there has to be other factors. And what I came to the conclusion was that unless a person acts in a way that does good for others, in a way that purifies and elevates his consciousness, in a way that is beneficial to others in the world, they can't buy themselves into happiness. And I think that's the illusion of this modern culture, is you could purchase, if you have enough money, you can just buy happiness. By accumulating a number of things, you can accumulate prestige also, because you can wear clothes that are expensive, and that gives you prestige. You can buy a BMW or a Mercedes. You get prestige there. You can wear an expensive watch. You can buy yourself into prestige, right? You can buy yourself into so many things. But the illusion is that you could buy yourself into happiness. And happiness doesn't come from things. Comfort comes from things. Sense gratification comes from things. Prestige comes from things, and people feel good. And look at me, I just pulled up in my Mercedes. So, and you just drove up on a scooter. I'm better than you. You have to look up to me. Makes me feel good. But is that really happiness? Just inflating your ego? Is that real happiness? No, because someone's going to come along and deflate your ego when you make a mistake and tell you did something stupid. So it doesn't work that way. When you act according to sattvic principles or spiritual principles, then you're tolerant, you're kind, you're forgiving, you're clean, you're humble. And when you act that way, you actually become happy. So you can act your way into happiness, but you can't buy your way into happiness. You can only buy your way into comfort and sense gratification. But you actually act your way into happiness. If I serve, I'm happy. If I accumulate for myself, I'm not as happy as when I serve. If I tell a lie to make some money, I can get that money and buy something. But the person who's honest inside will not have that guilt and shame, and they'll actually be more at peace with themselves than the person who lies, even though he's got more money or he's got a position through lying and cheating. that guilt and shame he carries with him. If you're resentful, you carry resentment with you. If you forgive, that virtue, it makes you happier, but it also enables you to become Krishna conscious. So things which purify, things which elevate your consciousness, they make you happy. So it's, you could say it in a general way, virtue, if you're virtuous, you will feel good. Right? Sometimes people say, I don't feel good about myself, and they'll go to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist will say, feel good about yourself. And say, well, how can I feel good about myself? I just did something horrible to somebody. No, you should feel good about yourself. You can't artificially do that. If you want to feel good about yourself, do something good. Then you'll feel good about yourself. Right? Isn't it? But to tell yourself, or have someone tell you, feel good about yourself, while, feel good, go shopping today and spend 10,000 rupees on stupid things, and that'll make you feel good. When you could have spent that to serve somebody. No, it doesn't work that way. You can't be selfish and feel good, right? So that's a temptation of modern culture, this idea, selfishness equals happiness. Get things for yourself, bigger, better, you'll be happy. But there's nothing to prove that is true. And there's a lot to prove it's not true, right? So, the reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to know that 20%, 1 out of 5 Americans, have been diagnosed with depression. And that's very interesting, because in a country which is so developed materially, it's so nice materially. Like, I'm here in India, we're driving through the traffic and the car fumes and the small streets and so much trash everywhere and so forth. And you go to America, it's big wide streets, it's not crowded. It's a country that it's like a third of the amount of people in India and at least 3 or 4 times bigger. So there's lots of space. And there's so much money that even the poor, the bad neighborhoods are not bad. And when we look at that, we might think, oh, this is really it. This is what we have to do, and this is what we have to become, and this is what we have to copy. But then you go behind the scenes. Why are 20% of the people taking drugs for depression in a country that is materially is beautiful? It has so much opportunity. It's like incredible opportunity to get ahead. You don't have to be the smartest one in your class to get into a decent university and get a degree and get a job. Why is there depression? It's so interesting. And now divorce rates are incredibly high. Why, in a country that's so materially, made so much material progress, why is the divorce rate so high? Why aren't people happy? Why are they taking antidepressants if they have enough money and enough material facility? So my understanding of it is that a human being, if they get too much sense gratification, instead, like if you have no sense gratification and no money, and you start making money, you get out of the slums, you get an apartment, you get a scooter, you're going to feel much happier because you're more secure, right? You're sleeping in a building, not in a shack. You can move around on a scooter. Every day there's going to be food. You don't have to go beg. There's a definite increase, right, in your happiness just because of the security and the comfort. But if you go too high, at a certain point, it starts to work the other way, plummet, because all the things you thought that were going to make you happy, you finally get them and it doesn't work, and it causes you to be depressed because it's like, let's say you're lost and you take a certain route and you think that's the route and you've been driving for like 20 minutes and 20 minutes will be there and you finally get there and you realize you're completely lost. That's pretty depressing. when you're going there, you're getting excited. Oh, we're almost there. You're getting optimistic. But when you finally get there and you realize we just went to the wrong place and you don't know which way to go, that's pretty depressing, right? So it's like that. People are achieving what they thought would make them happy. We're going to get this, and then they finally arrive to realize that they're lost. It didn't make them happy. And that's when depression starts. Does that make sense? You got everything you thought you wanted, and you realize this isn't what I wanted, and you don't even know what you want now. So too much opulence, too much sense gratification becomes counterproductive. And instead of being happy, you hit a point where it makes you unhappy because it's not working, you know? Like, it's like eating, right? You're hungry, you're starving, you're eating, you're filling up, you feel good, and finally you're full. After that point, you're full and you keep eating, that's the point you get sick, right? So it's like that with material prosperity. You go up to a certain point, you need it, but beyond that point, you start becoming sick because you've already eaten, you have enough, you can't get any more pleasure out of eating, right? You're not hungry. So well, I need more money, it'll make me happier. No, you've already got what you need. That's not what you need now. You need spiritual. You need to advance spiritually. You need to purify your consciousness. You need to overcome your envy, your greed, your lust, your anger. Then you'll be happy. Otherwise, you can't buy it. At a certain point, what's the word I'm looking for? At a certain point, it's like law of diminishing returns. The more you get, the less you have. Is there a word for that? There's a word, I can't think of it. I don't understand what you're saying. Threshold. No, it's rising, you're getting a result, but when you rise too high, it diminishes. It's like you're investing, it's going up, and then one day, the stock goes down. Should have pulled out. Yeah. The more you're investing, the less you're getting. Now the stock is going down. So there's a point which the is basically diminishing returns. The more you're putting into it, the less you're getting out. Previously you got enough. Now you have enough. You put in more. You're eating too much. Now you're just getting sick. It's not enjoyable anymore. Saturated, yes, but you're losing on your investment, basically. You were making money on your investment up to a certain threshold. Now it's time to stop investing. You invest more, it's all lost. You're just losing. It's not working.
It's actually Bell's curve.
Yeah, bell curve. Yeah, something like that, yeah. There's a point in which if you add more to it, that's like something. You made a drink, it's perfect, it has the right amount of sugar, salt, everything. If you add more sugar, now it gets worse. Something like that.
We call it like a liability, that we are giving something and we are not getting in return.
Yeah. You're not getting any investment any longer. Yeah. You ever like do something and it's perfect and you think, let's make it a little better, and then you ruin it? Like a painting or something, or cooking something like that. Like it's your mother goes, it's good enough, just leave it, it's fine, leave it, don't touch it. No, I have to make it better, and then you make it worse. Something like that. Yeah. So happiness it's an interesting subject, and money is an interesting subject, and progress is also an interesting subject. And that so-called progress can undermine your spiritual life. So the spiritual principle is that take care of your spiritual life first. That's the most important. That's the most important thing is your spiritual life. If you get promoted in your company to a point where you have to work so hard, you have no time for your spiritual life. Don't take the promotion, even though it makes more money. Even though it's better for your career, it's worse for your spiritual life. You have to consider these things. So most people just consider the material side. It's good for my position, it's good for my resume, it's good for the bank balance. I'll do it, right? But when you come to spiritual life, then you understand that the extra money and the prestige is not any longer what I'm after. I'm after spiritual life. That's what's most important. So that's a very important lesson or important principle to contemplate, because if you do well materially in such a way that it minimizes or even starts to destroy your spiritual life, then what's the point? Inversely proportional. Yeah. Inversely proportional. That's what I was trying to say. Something like that. Is that a mathematical term? Inversely proportional. The more you add, the less you get. So this is going to be a challenge for you as you move up in your careers. You may end up in a position where you're asked to take more responsibility, work longer hours, and it's going to compromise your spiritual life. And the carrot in front is the position and the money. So you have to be careful. It's not that you shouldn't take it, but you don't want to take a position that's going to compromise your spiritual life. That's the point. And the material tendency would be to do that. Yes? You agree? At least it's a strong temptation. Let's say that. It's definitely a strong temptation. But now that you're practicing spiritual life, you have to consider your spiritual life, right? Just like, let's say your father were sick and your company says, we can give you a better position in Hyderabad. But you have to be here to take care of your father, so you can't get that better position. You have to refuse it, even though it's better pay, better position. Because the higher principle is to be here in Bangalore, take care of your father. So you have spiritual principles, it's the same idea. You could be offered a better position, but you have to calculate, what are my spiritual responsibilities? Will they be compromised? Now in America, I forgot what I was going to say. In America. What was I going to say about America? What was the last thing I said before I said in America? Who knows? What? Not take the promotion. Yeah. Well, yeah. So in America now, because people have done that, people have compromised their lifestyle. They were willing to compromise their lifestyle for their job. So now people have experienced the stress and burnout from it. So many Americans would not take a better job that's more stressful and longer hours to make more money. They would take a job they like that makes less money. And they would rather spend that time doing yoga than sitting in an office in front of a computer up till 10 o'clock at night. So Americans are experiencing the effects of living that lifestyle, that materialistic lifestyle and the stress. So they've taken a lot of interest in spiritual principles, because what's happening in America, I think you're maybe 40 years behind America in many ways. What's happening in America is that in that pursuit for money, they lost their soul, and now they're looking for their soul. They lost meaning, they lost spirituality, and this is a big push in America to find meaning, to find spirituality, to look for spirituality outside of religion, traditional religion. And so you're in a different position. You don't realize that. You're kind of 40 years behind them. But with their history, this is what they're coming to. Depression, stress, looking for spirituality, yoga, Buddhism. They all become very popular. So I think it's important for you to know that it's kind of awkward that you may be heading in a direction that's caused Americans to head in your direction. Going in a circle. You don't. But you wouldn't go in the circle if you knew that they were heading in your direction and why. But when you don't know that, then you have to experience it. And then 40 years down the road, you'll realize, oh, that's why Americans were coming to India. I didn't realize that. But then I just spent 40 years in the corporate world. Now I understand. So I'm telling this to you now so you get a broader perspective of it. You don't just get the Indian perspective, but you get the perspective of people who've lived for decades doing what you're starting to do now. And they've come to the conclusion that I just need to do yoga. And I'm too stressed out and it's not worth it. And it's destroying my health and so forth. And I also need to find meaning and purpose. And like, who am I? Why am I here? And so it seems like Indians are kind of willing to give all that up just to make money. And that's a real shame. It's a real, what we call in English, travesty. It's almost unjust. It's almost an injustice for that to happen. That the culture that Krishna has given you, the knowledge Krishna has given you, to give that up just to make money, that's the real injustice. It's like you fall in love with some girl, and she's not even from a good family, and your parents say, if you go off with her, we will disown you from the family. And you go off with her. Like, was that worth it? You know? And this woman was kind of a low-class woman. She goes from man to man. She's not educated. She could cheat on you, lie on you, and you're going to run off with her? And you're going to have to pay the price of your family rejecting you, never talking to you again. That would be stupid. Right? So it's a little bit similar, that you're going to run after this little girl of money and give up your whole culture for that? When the people who have already done that are looking for your culture to get free from the stress that their culture caused them, it doesn't make sense. Does it? You understand? So rather than you have to going through all that and 40 years later, looking for a yoga studio in Bangalore because you're so stressed out, it's good to understand it now. And so that's going to be your challenge as you go up the corporate ladder, to know when I should stop climbing. Like, at what point is I'm making enough money, so everything's okay, and I have time for my sadhana. Why do I have to do anything to shake that up? It's okay. Just because I could get a better position and make more money, that's not a good enough reason. If it's going to compromise your spiritual life. If it's not going to compromise your spiritual life, of course, why wouldn't you? Take a better position. Maybe you'll work less. Maybe you'll work more. But if you don't have to work more, it's a better position, more money. Of course, you would do it. But we're talking about a position that would compromise your time, or it would put you in such stress it would be difficult to do your sadhana. That would not be smart. You agree? Yes. So money's important up to a certain point. And beyond that, you don't want money to compromise your spiritual life. Now someone might say, but Prabhu, what if I get that big position even though I have to work 70 hours a week, but I make lots of money and I can donate it to the temple? Now, a lot of people have said that, but they got so burned out at their job, they stopped chanting Hare Krishna, and then the desire to donate the money went to donate it, and they did donate it, but they donated it to their bank account instead of the project they intended to donate it to. So we have seen that. So yeah, now I have good sadhana, now I'm in the right frame of mind, I think, well, I'll make more money, we can, I'll help build the temple or whatever projects we're doing, I could fund. But a lot of times you compromise your spiritual life and then you compromise that desire. Or we've also seen, because you're making money, you're spending it, so your overhead goes up. And so now your intention to donate, you can't because you have such a big overhead that you just have to work, you have to get that higher position just to make ends meet. You've seen that because you bought a little bit of it too big. Your house is a little bit too big, your car is a little bit too big, your this and that's a little bit too big because you were making good money and you spent it. And now it's hard to maintain it and you don't have time. So the money you were going to donate, it has to go into your family. Just that's it. You don't have any extra money. Some savings, some maintenance, and that's it. So we've seen that also. So that's something else to think about. So you want me to talk about something else? Questions? Okay. You can ask questions. If you have questions on another topic, that's fine.
Any questions? Want to ask? We have seen the world, all the countries.
China, yeah, I went to China, yeah. If you go to China, you're going to be embarrassed. Country with 7 billion, a country with 1.2 billion people, completely organized, clean. That's amazing. Have any of you been to China yet? Oh, it's amazing. It's so modern and together. It's like, can't believe it. Organized. Very well organized. Very clean. Very wealthy. It used to be a super poor country, like India or worse. Yes, like 50 years ago. Now it's filthy rich. Cars, Maseratis. Maserati, you know what Maserati is? You ever seen one in India? You haven't even seen a Maserati. The Maseratis are everywhere in China. It's like super expensive cars. You know, like $150,000. How much is that in rupees? 150,000. It's like 7 million or something. 75 lakh rupees. No. Yeah, more than 75 lakhs. Like a lakh. What's a lakh? A million. Like $1 million rupees for a car. You know, like there's so much money there. But it's not like it's made people better. It's made them more comfortable, more secure, that's for sure. But consciousness-wise, it doesn't necessarily change anybody's consciousness. It doesn't elevate people spiritually. And many times, as I said, it degrades them spiritually. Yes. Our fearless leader has a question.
You can tell how you met Srila Prabhupada, and though you were from a different culture altogether and you took up Krishna consciousness. So what was your meeting experience in initial days?
Why would an American who doesn't know Krishna become a devotee? That's very interesting. And why would an Indian who knows Krishna not become a devotee? That even makes it more interesting. The world is strange, yes? Very strange world. Because Prabhupada said, India is looking towards America, America is looking towards India. So it's like I said, if your basic needs are well covered, then money's not an issue. It gives you the freedom to think. Like Prabhupada said, if you're poor, you don't have time to think about life, right? One time, they were telling Prabhupada about an art exhibit. You know, where there's a famous artist puts his paintings on exhibit, art exhibition. You have those here? You'll go to some art gallery and such artist. And Prabhupada said, art exhibition means full belly. I said, what? Full art exhibition means full belly. He said, unless you have all the needs of life met easily, you don't have time to go to an art exhibition. So art exhibition means full belly. Whoever goes there has no financial problem. Otherwise, they wouldn't have time to go to an art exhibit. So America is one big full belly. A lot of fat people eat too much because they have too much. So when you grow up in that environment, then you're not so illusioned by materialism. And when you grow up in that environment, it's kind of shallow. It's just like, well, what's life about? Well, just, you grow up as a kid, you just play sports and do things with your friends, and then go to college and waste time, Go to school, but you also waste time doing stupid things and getting drunk and whatever you do, go to parties. And so it naturally makes you think, what's the point? What am I supposed to do? So a lot of us in America who were raised like that had the time to think, well, what's life all about? because we weren't working just to pay the bills, or we didn't have to work as kids, to support our parents. So we had time to think. And so a lot of us were thinking. And we were looking at the American culture and we were saying, this doesn't work. There's got to be something better than this. This is shallow. And people are just working, supporting their homes, their families, and they're not really thinking. They're not contemplating questions, asking why. So that was the environment we were in. And so we started asking why. And hopefully more people in India will ask why as you progress materially, and when it doesn't work, they'll ask why. But we had, the time I was born, we had 50 or 100 years of prosperity in America. And it didn't really amount to much. Not what we thought it would, so we're asking why. What's so great about this? Doesn't life have any other meaning? So that's how Americans became interested in India, because we weren't finding within our culture an answer to our questions. So we were looking outside our culture, Buddhism, Hinduism. A lot of young people were traveling, go to Egypt, go to Greece, just exploring. And also the use of psychedelic drugs was done as an exploration in consciousness, to look for answers. So there's a whole generation of people looking for answers who had come out of this very affluent culture that they felt was very shallow. And it's the same culture you're creating here in India. It was the same culture that we looked at and said, no, this doesn't work. And so now you're creating it here. And when your kids grow up, they're going to grow up in a very rich India, and they'll be the next generation of hippies, and they'll look at you and they'll say, I'm not going to do that. They'll look at you, working, leaving for work at 8 o'clock, coming back at 7 o'clock at night, really burned out and tired. And, Daddy, what did you do all day? I was staring at a computer. And then, when they grow up, they're going to say, I don't want to do that. And, so you have a nice house, nice car, but, you're burned out every night, and, you don't look that happy. So that's what we were seeing. We were seeing our parents. And we weren't telling them this, but we were thinking, well, you don't look that happy. So why would I do it? Why would you do, like somebody's lost and you're going, oh, okay, I'll follow you. No. You want to follow the person who's not lost. So we look at our parents and we think, well, they're pretty lost. So why should I duplicate their lifestyle? Because if I do, then I'll end up like them. And I'm looking at them right now and I'm not envying their position. I'm not admiring their position. I don't want to do that. So a lot of us were really looking for an alternative to the lifestyle of our parents. We didn't know what it was. We didn't have it. But a lot of young people started looking to India, to the Gita, Upanishads, Vedas. We didn't know what they were. But India just seemed like a place of knowledge and mysticism, and then maybe you could have answers. Like, Radhanath Swami, when he was 18 or something, he just, let's go to India. That's, if you want knowledge, where do you go? You go to India. It's not like we didn't think you want knowledge, you go to the corner church. No, nobody thought like that. You either take LSD or you go to India, something like that. That was our idea. So India was kind of a mystical thing for us. I can't say exactly why, but I can say for me personally, it's because I wasn't finding answers within my own culture. My parents weren't giving it to me, the religious people weren't giving it to me. So I was looking outside to other cultures. And somehow or other, I don't know why, India was attractive. And so that attracted me to read Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is Indian. It has Indian philosophy, and my intuition was the answers are in meditation and Indian philosophy. It was an intuition, which obviously was garnered in a past life. Otherwise, why would I think at the age of 18 that meditation and Bhagavad Gita are the answer? When I don't even know what Bhagavad Gita is, and I don't have that much experience in meditation. So I think there's a combination there. And there's lots and lots of Americans who've moved to India, who have adapted Indian lifestyles with other gurus and yogis. And the clothes, the food, everything. So obviously, there was a connection from the past. And maybe they needed to take birth in America to fulfill some material desire, karmic thing. And, so maybe we all had some desire, so we got it, we wanted money, maybe we were Indian in our last life and we just didn't have enough. So Krishna let us, get it, in the first 20 years of our life. And then we said, okay, that's enough, I don't need it. And whatever knowledge we cultivated in the past, it was helping us. So, I guess we could say there was a whole generation of people, many of whom were disillusioned with the status quo. There was a war at that time, Vietnam. You know about the Vietnam War. And so that was like toxic. It was just like a toxic mix on top of the whole culture. This is the reason. We don't like your culture, and the result of your culture is you have this war where you're killing innocent people. And somehow you can't end the war. And you should have never entered the war. So the whole hippie generation was living through that Vietnam War, and it was like the icing on the cake of we don't like your culture, and this is a result of your culture. And so what they did, it was like a rebellion. We want to rebel. And it was a foolish rebellion in the sense that they rebelled against the morals of their parents. So that's where the free sex came in, the feminism came in, the experimentation with drugs. It was all like, let's do what our parents didn't do. Let's revolt against that whole social system. And drugs came on the scene, so that was the drugs were kind of a symbol of that revolution, of breaking away from your parents' culture, doing things your parents. So our parents never smoked ganja. They might have taken alcohol, but they never smoked ganja. So ganja was like the symbol of the revolution, LSD, and those drugs would open your mind up to new experience. So yeah, that was the idea. And so people were taking drugs, and some heavy drugs, and they were getting what they thought were spiritual visions. They were like realizing they were, out-of-body experiences or things of that nature. Not, I wouldn't say the realizations they had you could support in Shastra, but they were getting some understanding that there's some existence beyond the physical dimension. And so when people who have experimented with those drugs would hear that you're not the body, they would say, oh yeah, I had that experience on LSD, that I was not the body. So they just accepted it. So the LSD was, you can't say bhakti is caused by anything material or social, but there does seem to be a link that helped that generation accepting. And because it was a revolutionary generation, they were turning away from their parents, they were very willing to embrace anything foreign. So like when we came with the Hare Krishna mantra, even though it was foreign, people were very willing to chant. So many young people would come to our temples and chant with us and come to our Rath Yatra festivals. They were just, the younger generation was open to experimenting with new things. Because we just didn't like we didn't like our culture. So that's how a lot of us became devotees. We're very open to experimenting. And India was mystical and attractive. And then all of a sudden, you have this whole generation thinking that way, and all of a sudden, they're the devotees chanting down the street with Bhagavad Gitas, and it was like, okay, this is cool. And so, we were selling millions of Bhagavad Gitas, and Harinam parties everywhere, and people joining everywhere, because they were looking for an alternative. And we were the only store on the block, or we say in America, we were the only game in town. There was, you want to meditate, you want Bhagavad Gita, where do you go? It was Hare Krishna monopolized it. So in those days, that's why so many people became devotees, because those who were looking for something alternative didn't really have much choice. And the choices they had were not as prominent. We were right on the street. We were in people's faces. So if you were looking for spirituality, it's a good chance you would come across us. So that's how Americans did it. So it's quite the opposite of what's happening in India. You can see it's just like complete, okay, looking for meaning. We have the money, we have all that, let's find meaning. And you guys are like overdosed with meaning. You just want money, isn't it? Isn't it like, my grandmother gave me too much meaning and too much Shastra and Niti this and Panchatattva that and Narada Muni this and Ramayana. We have it, we know it. And look at our country, it's like messed up, we need to follow America, technology, modernization and all that. So you're coming from a totally different background. This is completely opposite. We don't need culture. We don't need, we grow up and we're 3 years old, we know we're not the body, we know what karma is, reincarnation, we don't, it's just like, big deal, everybody knows it. But in America, when we heard that, we go, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know I wasn't the body. For you, it's like, for you, that's just like nothing. It's like everybody knows that, right? You understand the difference? It's like it's so ingrained in your culture, you don't even notice it, right? But the money's not ingrained in your culture, so that's what you're focused on. But you don't realize what you're giving up because you never really embraced it, and you don't really understand what's going on in America till you live there and you see the good and the bad. And so you're embracing both the good and the bad and you don't know it. American culture has so many good things that could benefit India. But they're byproducts. If you do your modernization in the wrong way, there's byproducts, and then you suffer with city pollution, relational problems, divorce, problems with your kids, drug addiction, depression, all kinds of physical ailments that we've never seen before because of lifestyle changes. Fluorescent lights are really bad for you. I never saw fluorescent lights were really rare when I grew up. But they emit frequencies, they're just not healthy. And the cell towers emit frequencies that aren't healthy, and the microwaves emit frequencies that aren't healthy. And the phones we have emit frequencies that aren't. So these are byproducts of this economic and technological advancement. And so a lot of Americans, we know this because we developed the technology and we see how it's degraded our society. But your country's kind of going up, so it's hard to notice the other side. But we're already up, so we can see the spots on the sheet. Your sheet's still dirty, so you don't notice the spots. Does that make sense? Like when we Americans come to India, we notice all the spots. We're like, these cell towers everywhere. This is not healthy. Everybody's got 3 phones. This is not healthy. There's too many cars in this city. This is not healthy. Like, we know these things from experience. I grew up in Los Angeles. There was so much smog in the city that on some days, schools were closed because you actually couldn't breathe. You couldn't take a deep breath. It would hurt to take a deep breath. The air was that polluted. Can you believe that? And it's like India. You'd be flying the blue skies, and you fly into LA, and it's brown. And it's like a cloud of brown, and you can't see anything. You just see a brown cloud. That was all smog. So, we're not illusioned by material progress. I don't think we would say we take it for granted, but we see the byproducts. We see the negative byproducts. We see the good and the bad. Like, I go back to America. My wife and I, we have this, it's so funny. We spend a lot of time in India. So, if you spend like 6 months in a country or 7 months, you get used to that. That becomes like normal for you. So how in India things, always go so easily, and, they take time. You go to this shop, and he goes, oh, I'm out of it, go to that shop. Oh, I just gave it to the other shop. What other shop? The shop you were just in. And, it's like, and oh yeah, I have, and he pulls it out. Oh, that's the wrong one. And, you don't have that in America. It's just, you go online, there's 500 of those, and Amazon, next day it's at your door, right? So, or you drive down to the mall and there's not tons of traffic, and it's just different. So whenever we've stayed in India a long time, and then we go back to America, the first 3 days, my wife and I, it's like we're living in a dream, and we're always joking, oh, everything works here, because India, you want to get a phone in your house, and it's like, you're like, yes, we'll put you on the list, and in 3 months, and you're like, and you go back to America, you just like, you just call the company, okay, we'll come out, we'll turn it on tomorrow, and this and that, and it takes like 2 minutes, and the whole thing's done. So it's so funny, America is so efficient, And like everything works. So it's not that we don't appreciate America. There are many things, but we appreciate, but we see the byproduct. That if you're not careful, you produce toxic byproducts. You pollute the world, you pollute the earth. People degrade. They'll do anything to get money, and so forth. Sreshwar was telling us there's some universities, you pay them 50, 100 lakhs, and they'll just give you the answers to all the tests, and you'll become a doctor, or this or that. So, that kind of thing, that's the problem with money. It can degrade people to commit many, many, many horrible acts. Yes? You can buy politicians with money and so forth. So we see that in America. It's corrupt, but nothing like this. We can't compete with you. So that's a good part of America. People are, they have values, and if there's corruption in government, there are like so many cases against Trump. Did you know that? He's got so many court cases against him, and he's the president of the United States. Isn't that interesting? So America has that good side, they stand up to values and integrity and honesty and so forth. And that's why people hate him so much. They figure he tells 200 lies every day. That's probably more than any politician in India, right? I mean, 200 lies a day? That's 7 an hour, I figured. There was I forget how many, but I calculated it was 7 an hour. So that's like, one every 8 minutes, 9 minutes, it's like amazing. So Americans can't tolerate that. So, that's why we as Westerners could become devotees. And I would just like to tell you something, it's just an observation, and I think it will help you and inspire you. That no matter where you come from in India, no matter what you've done, you could say, well, before I was a devotee, I had girlfriends, I was, getting drunk every weekend, partying, this and that. But what I can say is this, no matter where you've come from, when you take to Krishna consciousness, it's easier for you than it is for a Westerner. Because a Westerner has no samskara, has none of these samskaras. And even though you are a debachi, this and that, you still have samskaras coming through your families and generations and society. And you don't probably realize you do. But I've just noticed that it's easier for Indians to be Krishna conscious. It's your culture. So you're not adapting to something new, right? You grew up, you knew what a sadhu is. You had a concept, there's sadhus, there's monks, that these virtues are good. If someone can be renounced, it's good. Celibacy is good, brahmacharya, you grew up with these things. You may not agree with it, but you grew up around it. And so that when you want to become Krishna conscious, it all kind of kicks in and works for you. We didn't have that. We grew up with the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and all kinds of crazy movies, and it was just a different culture. We didn't grow up with those values. We grew up with values, but different values. And so I've just noticed that when an Indian wants to become a devotee, no matter what their background is, it's just a little more seamless and natural, and sometimes a lot easier for you than for us. Like in India, we have many, many, many brahmacharis, and many of them are relishing being single. It's not a problem, it's not a struggle. Most American men, 5-10 years of brahmachari, that's all they can do. Then they get married. It's a different culture. It's a different samskar, a different way of thinking. So you have a lot of advantages. And so that's why for us as Americans, to see Indians becoming too westernized, it really hurts us, because we see it's your culture, and if you take to it, you can do really well with it. You can imbibe it much more easily. It's like for us, rock and roll is our samskar. It's like rock and roll is in our blood. Like, every kid in America practically can play guitar, or drums, or bass. Everybody. This is like, it's just, we can do it. We know how to do it. It's in our blood. We know how to dance that, play it, sing it. So like Krishna consciousness, in a similar way, it's in your blood, even if it's dormant. It's in your blood, and so when you begin practicing, it's just natural for you. More natural than it is for a Westerner. And you may think, oh, well, you met Prabhupada, this and that. That's true. We're fortunate. But still, you have this in you. You come from, your great-grandparents, definitely your great-grandparents were religious. Yes? That's for sure. And probably your grandparents. Your parents, I don't know, maybe not, somewhat. But you come from a lineage, and some of you probably come from very religious backgrounds, or your father was a pandit and worshipped Shalagram Shila, and your uncle was a Kirtaniya, and you think we have that in America? Oh yeah, my great-grandfather worshipped Shalagram Shila. No way, he didn't worship Shalagram. There is no Shalagram Shila in America. So that's something I'd like you to appreciate, that if you want to be Krishna conscious, you have a lot of advantages, and we as Westerners are handicapped in many ways. And I can say that not only from observation, but also from preaching to Indians and preaching to Westerners and having Western disciples and having Indian disciples. And it's just Western disciples are more unstable. Spiritually, faith is an issue. Faith is not such a big issue for you. It's part of your culture. It's natural to have faith. Does that make you agree? Or, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy for you. I'm just saying, but you have that as an advantage. So you can really take advantage of that. If you want to be Krishna conscious, if you really want to do it, it'll be easier, and you'll be able to understand Indians, because it's your culture, and there's Indians they're just different. You are so different than Americans. And whenever I live in India, and especially live with Indian families, I'm always marveling. You just think differently. And that thinking differently enables you to very easily understand the philosophy. You would naturally understand it. It's just and so many Sanskrit terms, you already know what they mean because of the same words in your own language. And Mahabharata, Ramayana, it's just it's so easy for you to understand it because your brain has been molded to understand these ideas since you were a baby, right? Our brain wasn't molded for that. Our brain was molded for sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So we have to understand it. And sometimes there's certain things like, what does this mean? It's like, culturally, we don't understand it. How could this be good or right? But for you, it's like, oh yeah, this is our culture. This is how we do it. Like this idea when Prabhupada said, the first day the husband and wife met was on the wedding day. When we heard that, we all fainted. It was like, seriously, that was like the strangest thing that we ever heard from Prabhupada. It was like that. There was no place in our brain at all to make sense of that. No place. There was no space anywhere that could make sense of that. But then you'll hear that and go, yeah, that's how it used to be. Still some couples do that. And, well, what about now? Well, we get to see her. Our parents pick her and we get to see her. And if we really don't like her, then right. But even that for us is like, your parents picked her. What? You don't pick your wife? No, they picked. I had this, it's about 20 years ago. So we were staying at the home of a woman. She was in her 70s. And her grandson was a musician. And he liked to spend time with me, because I could play keyboard and guitar and like that. So one day we were spending time together, and this was just when McDonald's had opened up in India. And I said, take me to McDonald's, I want to see it. Because for me it's like McDonald's in India. This didn't make any sense at all. I just wanted, so we drove and we were talking. And he was telling us about his girlfriend. This is my girlfriend, and this is her name, and this is what we do, and this and that. And then my wife says, so you're going to marry her? And he says, oh no, my parents are going to pick my wife. And for us, that was like, what? You have a girlfriend, and you're not going to marry her, and your parents are going to pick your wife. For an American, no place in the brain for that. Because you have a girlfriend, that's the girl you're going to marry. And why would you have your parents pick a girl if you already have one? Right? So, but for you, it's like, oh yeah, my parents are going to pick. My girlfriend's she's just my girlfriend, but my parents will pick. For us, it's like, huh? So you have these advantages of that. Your brains are wired differently because you grew up with it. And so it's easier. And I just see this. And, when I talk to Indian devotees and we talk philosophy, I can see they just naturally understand it. It's just like, it's like, scripture and religion for you is like baseball for us. It's just like baseball and football. Of course, now it's also cricket and football for you too, but thanks to the British. But you understand what I'm saying. It's just very natural for you. So that's a big advantage you have. And the other thing I've seen amongst Indians, it's easier for Indians to do austerity. Like on Ekadasi, of all the people doing Nirjal, most of them will be Indians. That's what I've noticed. Or people chanting 64. Most of them will be Indians. And those Indians that do it, they'll do it every Ekadasi. It's just like, it's easier for them. American bodies, you take birth in America for sense gratification. You take birth in India for spirituality. So even though you're corrupted by materialism, you still have this nature. Maybe you don't realize it, but it's easier for Indians to do austerity. Like this traffic you have and the way people drive, Americans couldn't tolerate that. There'd be fighting. There'd be all kinds of, I'm serious, there would be all kinds of fights on the street all the time. You cutting in front. People would get off their motorcycle and punch people. I'm serious. This is not a joke. They would do that. They don't have that level of tolerance. Seriously. Standing in line and the line's not moving, and you know, and then people going in the front of the line, and you know, as Americans, where they couldn't deal with that. So you do have that ability to tolerate, to do tapasya. I mean, maybe you don't realize these things, but I'm just comparing you to Americans, so that I'm just saying, if you want to be a devotee, you do have many advantages, for sure. So you should appreciate that. And so, knowing you have those advantages, don't be so stupid to throw those advantages away just to make money, and you know, to minimize your spiritual life, because you have such an advantage if you want to be Krishna conscious. Yes, Nandita.
When we become devotees, so we want to have a simple life, and we don't want to work too much or accumulate too much money. That's beneficial for our spiritual life.
Yes.
But as Indians, we also have a mentality that unless your son and daughter doesn't become an engineer or a doctor or work in a MNC, then there's no status, there's no success.
Yeah.
And that mentality is not gone even after we become.
You don't have to worry, because by the time you have kids that are 20 years old, they're not going to do what you say anyway. It's going to be a different culture. So you're going to be forced out of that mentality. And that's my prediction. So this is an easy answer because you don't have to worry about it. The culture will do it. And my other prediction is, after you work in the corporate world for 40 years, you're not going to want your kids to do it, because you're going to say, that was a mistake. And you're going to look at your parents and say, I wish you didn't ask me to do that. You know, sit and be an engineer. I just wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a musician. Engineer, that's not, I'm a creative person. Just like, you know, putting bridges together, that was not fun. You know? So that's my prediction, because that's what America's like. You know, parents don't choose occupations for kids, and that just doesn't work in America, because it's all about what is your varna. And in India, where the book about varna and ashram was spoken, your parents choose your varna based on how much money you'll make, not based on your varna. So it's such a paradox, isn't it? And that whole movie, The Three Idiots, was, you know, it's kind of, you could say, a protest of that mentality. So that's my prediction. I don't think that's going to be a problem, because I don't think your kids are going to go for it. And I think after you've spent 30, 40 years working in the corporate world, you wouldn't wish that experience on your worst enemy.
How do I change my own mentality when it's conditioned?
How to change your own mentality.
Because I'm brought up in such a family.
Yeah. Because it's not our philosophy to choose. You choose, the parents and the guru choose the occupation according to in guna and karma, not according to how many dollars it makes. So it's not even, Arjuna didn't say, oh, I'm going to become a Brahmin, I'm not going to fight because I could make more money. If Arjuna said, I could make more money, and Krishna said, yeah, be a Brahmin, then you'd have an excuse. No, but he said, I want to be a Brahmin, and Krishna said, not your swabhav, it's not your nature. And if you don't act according to your nature, it's sinful. So you have to fight. So, we're parents, we're encouraging our kids in sinful activity by not letting them work according to their swabhav. So let's say your kid says, I want to be a photographer, and you say, but you won't make enough money. He says, I don't care. I'll live in a simple apartment, and this is what I like to do. This is the love of my life. So you have to respect that and try to help them understand, right? That's their choice, right? You have to, because your ideas, if they don't have the best possible job possible, they won't be happy. That's just your idea. It's not true. I mean, there are better things to do than find bugs in software 9 hours a day, right? For the next 35 years. That's tough. So why would you want to subject your kids to that? Sitting under fluorescent lights in front of a screen emanating unhealthy radiation. Not good for your mind, not good for your eyes, not good for your body. Why would you even want your kids to do that? So they could take home a good paycheck and have some security? My wife was telling me there was an article, and it said, due to automation, that 15 years from now, most of what kids are being trained to do, there'll be no jobs. They'll all be automated. Job security. How secure is your job, your education, when some computer is going to be able to do it 15 years from now? Right?
Prabhu, you explain like difference between Americans and Indians, but now the thing like Americans wants to follow the Indians' cultures and everything. You already explained like Indian having a culture to adopt the Indian culture.
Yes.
But now the Indian mentality is like that we know these things, but we have to go beyond these things. Like in America and China, what happens?
Yeah.
So they are training to follow these things, not to follow whatever we know.
Yeah, because they feel like what you know has ruined your country and made you economically depraved. Yes, he wants me to stop.
Yes, Aarti will start
Oh, yeah.
to give some gifts also to them.
Okay, so we're going to have to stop now. But we started late, but we have to stop. So it's time for Artik, I was told. So looks like the fun's over. But and it's understandable because
We can continue.
okay, because we can continue. We have bonus time now. So because when you look at a country like America, where life is so nice and easy and comfortable, then you look at India like 50 years ago, where people are working very hard and roads are not good and medical facilities not good. So it's understandable. But I can't say I'm an expert in this, but it's like when you have something that works and you don't use it and you try to replace it with something modern, but you don't really get the modern together, then you kind of get nothing. You lose your culture, but you haven't really modernized well. So you're like, you're kind of in the middle. So I think when the British came, they modernized, but when they left, they gave it back to you. And then it was hard for you to maintain it on their level because they were running it and they were putting their money into it. And so naturally, looking at that, and you think, well, we have to bring it up to the level the British had it, right? And the British had kind of made Indians think that their traditional culture has kept them impoverished, right? But like we say, wealth is in land, it's in grains, it's in cows, and now wealth is in money, which is just now numbers on a bank balance. So it's, now we're dealing with a whole different definition of wealth. And so you're part of the greater world and you're playing that game, so you have to play it. But look at how you're playing it. It's like when I look at India, I think it just wasn't really meant to be an economic power. Because in order to play the game, you created these cities which are unlike most cities in the world. They're more polluted, they're more disorganized. The living conditions are not as high as they are in other cities. So, those are the problems you're running into.
But like in American people see like Indians are like so well everything. They want to desire to do this Indians activities.
They don't want to live in India. They just want to do yoga in America.
And then like Indians wants to like be like Americans to feel that their cultures and all. So this thing is like going.
So we have to find some place in the middle. Yeah? Jagannath Swami ki jai. So there's a balancing point, right? And Prabhupada said, you know the example Prabhupada gave? Let's say I can't walk. And let's say you're blind, but you can walk. So if I get on your shoulders, I can tell you where to go and we can both go there. So Prabhupada said, India is like the man who can't walk. And America is like the man who can't see. So India has the spiritual knowledge. It knows, it has the spiritual vision. It knows how to direct things. How should we use things? And America has the things to be used. So Prabhupada thought it was a great combination. So, Prabhupada never put down prosperity and wealth and so forth in general. He put down the misuse of it. So he said India will give the vision. But he said India was never meant to be an economic power. It was meant to be a spiritual power and give spiritual vision. That's what he always said. And so then India starts to become an economic power, but it's okay. You might become an economic power, but your lifestyle, is it that better? Is that much better? Riding an hour a day to work on a scooter in traffic, that's a pretty bad lifestyle. Now, I don't know what your office is like. If you work for an American company, your office is probably nice, but if it's an Indian company, it's probably not as nice. Is that true? And your boss is probably nicer if it's an American company. So, that was Prabhupada's point, I think Prabhupada's point was, you're meant for giving spiritual knowledge, and you're really not meant for being a modern country because you have an infrastructure of traditional. I went to see this doctor, so he's giving me medicine. So one medicine is cow urine with maybe cow dung, cow urine and three herbs. Then one medicine is panchagavya in a tablet base. One medicine is panchagavya in a ghee base, and one medicine is pure ghee. So all the medicines are from the cow. And I was thinking, and he used these medicines, what he said, his father-in-law had cancer, and he used these medicines to cure cancer. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. You just take cow products and it cures cancer. That's like a major wow, isn't it? And you have all this money being spent in the best universities in the world for cancer research. And cow dung, cow urine, ghee, milk, and curd are curing it. That's amazing, So these are the kinds of things you have in your culture that have been suppressed by modernization. And so then, instead of doing that, you go to an allopathic doctor and take some allopathic medicine. That's a real shame, isn't it? When you have these traditions and cultures. So that's what you're offering. That's the real gift you give to the world. So your latest gift is software programming. You'll be the new Silicon Valley of But you can do it, but Prabhupada's point is that's not what you were supposed to do. You could take that intelligence that you have to understand spirituality and use it, and understand astronomy and astrology according to the Vedic, and use that in mathematics and then become a programmer. So you can do it, but it wasn't what you really were supposed to do. You were supposed to give Vedic knowledge to the world. That was Prabhupada's point. And so, at least from my position as American, seeing how India is developing, it's like it confirms that you weren't supposed to develop materially. It's like you don't do it well. Your cities are very disorganized. Your standard of living is not. You're working for the same American companies, but your houses they're not that nice compared to America. Your roads aren't that good. The traffic is. We may have the same amount of traffic, but at least it moves. And it all moves in a lane. It doesn't take so long. And our cities aren't as polluted, and we're more conscious about what we eat, and most people don't smoke. And so you're trying to do the same thing, but it's so hard for you because your culture's so different. And you're coming without that 50 years of experience. Like no one in America who's smart smokes, because everybody knows it's bad for you. But in a developing country, smoking is considered like some kind of status symbol or something, right? Isn't it? And rich people don't wear Rolex watches. That's the people who want everyone to think they're rich. Things like that. So, Okay, we have to stop, right? Okay, so I hope that helps. It's at least some seeds, some things to think about, and maybe inspire you in your spiritual life and balance your material life in a way that can help you. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, we're all going to go. Just say goodbye to all of you.
So we are very
Hare Krishna.
fortunate to have a wonderful class by His Grace Mahatma Prabhu. So let him thank from the core of chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
Krishna. So, thank you for the enthusiastic participation. Today, now we end our today's outing, like Sankalpa outing. So we have some gifts for all of you, and we want for those participants who attended today's outing.